Gamer, and this is The Breakdown. What? Hey, everybody! Hi, everyone! It's Wednesday, or at least I'm told it's Wednesday. And you know what this means? It's The Breakdown. I'm Catherine, aka The High-Heeled Gamer, and today is a special breakdown because it's a breakdown in review. I'm joined by the one and only Jeff Messer. Jeff!
What's up? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Wednesday no longer exists.
It doesn't.
Yeah, time no longer exists. There was a memo that went out about that. Much like a comic book end of universe scenario, all of time has collapsed into one linear existence that is this endless loop.
Exactly. The only reason why I know is because Jack is nice enough to text me at least 2 hours in advance, and I'm like, oh, I gotta look presentable. Okay, got it. It's Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I never have an idea as to what's happening as far as day and time. It's all irrelevant now.
Well, and the fact that it's now June 10th.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
This is creating so much chaos for me personally because, of course, anyone who's on the world of Facebook, you get reminded of either how crappy your life was in years past or how great it was in years past every day. So it's for the masochist and the narcissist in us all.
It is.
And so we've just kind of rolled through a number of really interesting mileposts. A couple of weeks ago, last year, I was in Detroit at Motor City Con, which of course got canceled this year. Yeah. And I think one of our very first live videos that we put up here was from Motor City. Was my interview with William Messner Loebs, the comic book writer and sometimes artist, who was there as a guest and had been going through a rough patch in his life and had gone from homeless back to being a comic creator again. And that was just a year ago, a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't seem like that. And then, of course, like a month ago, Jack and I were at Free Comic Book Day at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte. And then we were back at Heroes doing a little pre-HeroCon interview just last week in the timeline a year ago. And a week from this Friday, we were at HeroesCon.
I know. It's so crazy. It is. It's like, it doesn't even feel, it's so surreal. Like it feels like a different lifetime, but then sometimes it feels like, wasn't that like last week? Like, it's weird. But
yeah, seriously. I've been doing my my taxes. Because of course we got the postponement on taxes to July 15th because of coronavirus. And by reviewing all my taxes, of course, I have to go back and find all of the expenses and all of the things related to all of this nonsense that we do. Yeah. And of course, revisiting, airline tickets to Detroit for Motor City, and then revisiting San Diego Comic-Con, which is a month away from being a year ago. And of course that's not happening either. In fact, the whole world of comics has taken a real hit. But I will say good news from the Western Front. I went to my local comic shop today, and they've been open for a couple of weeks, doing social distancing and masks and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I went into the local comic shop today, and for the first time in 3 weeks, when I open the door, you can see their new books on the shelf across the room.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the past few weeks, it's been spotty at best. It's like there's a lot more wall than there are books. And when I opened the door, all their racks were full. And I was like, yes, now it feels like we're back to normal, at least in some sense. So today was really good for comic shops. Looks like deliveries are up and everybody's back to being fully stocked now. And hopefully the kinks have been worked out and everything's going to be cool going forward.
Yeah, that is the hope. I unfortunately have not been able to get to my comic book store because my car sat for so long that we barely drove it, and now like the brakes are kind of spotty. So I'm like, I can't risk an hour and a half trip to get comics.
Yeah, so. We all went from like 30 miles to a gallon, to basically a tank of gas for 2 months.
Yeah. And like that was great and everything, but unfortunately, because my car wasn't being used that much, like things are falling apart now.
That sucks.
It does, but I'm excited. So
yeah. We saw him show up a few minutes ago, but he didn't say anything. Jack is also here hanging out with us. The original three. I see it in the title. The original three back together. Yeah.
Yeah. I see the back together, and all I think of is the Muppets together again.
Oh, right. I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking about some of those taglines they used to use for the Lethal Weapon sequels.
Why is that where your mind went? I'm here. I'm playing around with trying to get videos up. As I thought it'd be fun to play.
I was thinking of still too old for this shit. That's catchphrases like that.
Yeah.
The Glover.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, it's so funny that when you think about how quickly this happened, that we are going to be on 50, and just everything we've done. Like I'm distracted by our social media as I'm flipping through it. I'm like, there's so many videos.
50th episode is next week, which is pretty amazing. And here's the thing: is that we've had obviously more than 50 things airing, but it's been 50 of the breakdown. Like before it was the breakdown, we were just throwing stuff up.
We had
shooting. And officially as the breakdown, it's now been almost a year. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And like we've got, a lot of exciting things I guess we can talk about, but some of the guests that we've had on the show, we are now involved in publishing their comics. So there'll be announcements about that. I don't know. I don't think we should. I know Kat likes to give away all the Easter eggs for the.
We're working on so much stuff. Yeah, there's a
exclusives. So I don't know if you want to talk about, maybe who the 50th episode guest might be. That I'll leave that to you. You can wait. You're only 7 minutes into the show, so you've got plenty of time.
I know. I'm like, do I say it or do I just like say where he's from? Ooh, you put me on a tough spot.
I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot for putting you on the spot.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
No problem.
I just like that, in a year, nothing's really changed as far as us. We're still the same cool nerds that we were at the beginning of this.
Is that what this is supposed to be? Because I do not feel cool.
I do, because I'm very proud of everything we've done. Jeff with issues with,
I expected more celebrity status for us all, but
there you go.
The damn coronavirus,
Yeah,
that's right.
That did put a damper on.
We would have been royalty at Heroes Con next week for season 2 of issues.
Yeah,
but
man, it happened. Y'all's backgrounds are banging. I'm just realizing mine. I looked up and I was like, man. But no, it's what we'd be doing right now would be so different, and it's changed our entire game plan. So people who are wondering when they actually get to start watching season 1, we are, because of delays of COVID-19, we're going to be pushing ahead on some other options to make it more available more quickly, sooner, faster, better, stronger. And I have. On my side, everything seems to be running a little slow, but I thought I would try to see if we can play this clip here in a second.
Hey, there we go.
If I can get it to play for you, I absolutely will.
Yes, that'd be great. Yeah, it's been an exciting ride. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was officially episode 2. Okay.
Hey,
because there was one of you.
We're doing a breakdown episode with William Messner and Loebs. I came all the way to Detroit just to meet you, buddy. How are you?
I am good. I am good.
I'm
Max. It's getting harder and harder to buy you out of here. I heard you almost bit off Baker's finger this time.
Yes.
I'm not absolutely sure about this, but I think I'm either the first or second guest they had at Motor City.
Back in the 30 years that they've been doing it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mike Goldman approached me during
It's very quiet.
It is.
So he was going to be putting on a
This isn't a new.
Well,
I'm
they
using a
from
link
before the Con
Michigan
had
area,
opened,
the
so
Detroit
thank
area.
goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. All your life?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I can't believe I have no idea what volume. But for those of you who don't know,
it's
William Esner Loebs
I was talking
did
to Andre
the
LeBlanc,
Max. I know he's done a bunch of other
his
stuff.
Spirit background.
And that stuff's really
And
cool
so
and awesome
we
and
were-
everything, but
he
I
and
love
Will
the Max.
Eisner and I and Nadine were all
I was
at
so
the,
thrilled that this was one of the first things that we did.
At the airport.
Well, and I got him to sign a copy of the Max #1, and I
so
brought
he
it back
said,
for you.
Yeah.
You come from around here.
But of course, back in the 80s and 90s, he worked on The Flash and Wonder Woman and lots of other mainstream characters, so he's quite well known.
Right. Oh yeah, when you look him up, like it's funny how if you like somebody specifically because of one particular comic or content, and then you look them up, you're always kind of like blown away. Like, oh my God, they worked on other things. Like, how dare you betray me and work on other things? But
well, the cool story about him too was that he had dropped off the face of the earth 7 or 8 years ago, and some fans discovered that he and his wife had some health issues. They'd been in a homeless shelter. He was like working as a janitor at a church just to survive. And even when I interviewed him last year, he was still kind of rebuilding his life. A great guy, Mike Jones, a guy up there in Michigan, had helped him recover all of his comics and all of his artwork from storage facilities. They found like a 165-page graphic novel that was finished that he had never published. They found a lot of original art, and this guy Mike helped him get his life back together, got him into some cons so he could sell some things. And he was working for Panera Bread as a delivery guy.
Wow.
A year ago when I met him, because he was still kind of rebuilding his life and everything. But now I believe the latest reports is that he is back to doing comics, and he is back on the right track. So, it was really one of those things when I saw he was going to be there, I thought, I've really got to interview him, because I think what we set out to do was to not just do fan service type conversations. Let's try to find some real human interest stories, and his was a great one. And I was really thrilled to have that chance to chat with him. And a lot of the folks in season 1 of Issues With that we filmed have a lot of deep personal stories, and a lot of there's a lot of truth telling that goes on. I've seen some of the rough cuts of the episodes, and I'm kind of like, wow, this is kind of amazing that they were as open to talking about these things as they were. It was really quite cool.
Without a doubt, that was always my takeaway. And I know, Kat, you're on the floor, so things are a little crazier. But even on the floor, when it was loud and it's like there's this echo, and we have mics on you guys, so I can hear clean, but I can also turn on a regular mic and hear what it was like for you guys. And it's like chaos. But some of the people you talked to, even there, like opened up and talked about things where you're like, wow, this got really deep.
Yeah. And I wasn't like, that's one of the things I wasn't expecting, because I've gone Heroes Con, I forget how many years now. And when I've talked to people, it's usually like fun and upbeat and stuff like that. And every now and again you'll get like wow, that's like really, thank you for opening up. But a lot of people were so comfortable with just, pouring their hearts out. And I like that, because, you learn from that.
I agree.
Yeah. It's, a lot of these Comic-Cons are kind of our church. It's church for nerds is what it is. It's this, it's this congregational sort of existence where everybody can come and feel safe. And I think that opens up folks to a lot of emotion. And
if y'all don't know this one.
There it is. There's the Max #1. Maurice is in the chat too. He says Max is one of the most cool animations he ever saw, and it was MTV. Was it MTV?
They called it Liquid Television. It came on at like a certain time, right? It was like the late night.
Yeah.
MTV. I think Beavis and Butthead got their start there.
Aeon Flux.
Yeah. There's another one by the same artist as Aeon Flux called Rain, which was that creator taking on the story of Alexander the Great, and it was fascinating. I mean, they did weird stuff, man. They really went out there, and I loved it. I love the show. I have a DVD. I ordered it legally, but when it arrived, it felt very bootleg.
The way of the world, man. It's the way of the world.
If anybody finds like a legal, really like a Blu-ray version, I would pay for it because I love that show.
Well, at some point they'll get around to putting it out, I'm sure. Somewhere down the line, somebody owns, whoever owns is the parent company of the company that made the video. It'll be on their streaming service coming to you next month.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
That's
that's the Wayback Machine. Mr. Loebs was episode 2. So episode 1 must have been our Heroes Con interview, was it? Or was it?
No, the first episode was you sitting at home. Yeah, and I can share the screen real quick here.
Wait. Yeah, this was after after I found out about the Eisners, probably. So.
Yeah. No? I think it was earlier than that.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you found out about the Eisners right before. I'm sorry. Then I thought it was like right before Heroes Con.
No, it was like April 27th or something like that. Something weird like that. And again, I found out because somebody messaged me on Facebook and said congratulations, and I was like, congratulations on what? And I had to go deep dive through the internet to find out that I'd been nominated, which was kind of funny. But no, it's my fault because I'd missed a phone call the evening before from the publisher. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Always answer those calls.
I am telling you. I'm kind of a call screener most of the time.
I'm 100% a call screener, especially like if Jack calls. I'm like, "Ooh, do I want to pick it up or not?" Like,
yeah. Like, do I have this much time in my day? Oh.
Okay, so it says in the description. I heard that. I'm listening. I hear all. By the way,
we know.
In the description for this first episode, it says. It's a meet Jeff, find out about the guests coming onto the breakdown, and hear about his nomination for the Eisner Award and much more.
Sorry.
So you did know about it.
A catch-all kind of, hey, we're going to do this thing, and this is what's going down. Yeah, okay, I do remember that because I filmed that in the basement, and my 2 teenage sons have their own little man cave, and that's in their man cave.
Oh, well, that should be an episode. We want to see the kids' man cave.
Yeah.
Yeah. All they do is sit there and play video games. So
living the life.
That's so typical.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So yeah, it's funny because when you go back and look, I had the same thought though that weren't we at the Heroes Aren't Hard to Find during our first episode, but that wasn't true.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we had already done a couple of episodes. We were still, at that point trying to figure out what the deal was. Yeah. It wasn't until after Heroes Con that we decided, okay, this is going to be kind of the show that pads in between the seasons of issues with. We were still sort of sorting out what we were going to do.
We still are.
We still are. Yeah. I mean, everything changes. Yeah, the only thing that's permanent is change. So
yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I wasn't there for the birth of the breakdown. The birth,
right? Yeah, because at that point, we were still looking for Kat.
Yeah.
And now you guys are kicking yourself, going, "Man, we're stuck with her. Damn it."
You're screening my calls. Let's be honest about this. You're screening my calls. I think it works the other way. I think it's more like you're like, I can't believe I still answer their calls.
It's been exciting. I've been very fortunate with you guys to have met and learned a lot of things, because as you guys know, I was doing my own thing, my little solo act, and I learned a lot through that. But actually being in production and actually learning the terminologies, it's a whole different ball game. So I'm very grateful for that, because I love hands-on learning and experience, and that's what the Breakdown and Issues With has done for me. Look at me caring.
Yeah.
I'm all warm and fuzzy inside.
I do like you guys. But as much as I love you guys, I have loved the guests that we have had. And the vast different walks of life and talents and stuff. It's amazing. That some of that has been a lot of fun. I think Jack still to this day makes fun of me of how cheesy I was talking to Terrence Grace, the gentleman who created Lock and Smith. From the moment I said hello, I was like, read like these letters back here, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so like fangirling. Like I was a blubbering idiot. The fact that I got questions out was amazing.
Well, and what's funny is that somehow the guest is always like, oh, you did such a good job, you're so professional. And then they're like, all right, bye. And you're like,
yeah. What people don't catch is when the camera goes off.
Very well.
Yeah, I do. And I try really hard. Because I do want to let them know that I do appreciate their work, but when I get like excited about it, it's almost like at a cheesy level, and it sometimes comes off as
it's cheesy.
Yeah, it is cheesy. And sometimes it comes off as fake, but it's really not. Like if I like you and I like your work, like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
No way
and
around.
I've got specifically the locksmith here.
I do. I have it.
Talk about, this is one of the things that I love about this industry, and we saw this a lot, was that we would reach out to somebody. So we were like, we'll buy these. Like, we want to buy your comic and support you. And we supported this on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But as we do those things, they always send us free stuff. And like, as soon as we talked with him, and Kat actually did that interview, I think he hit you up specifically and was like,
yeah, he did.
Well, let me send you the actual issues. And you were like,
yeah. Well, so we ended that show, and I couldn't hold it anymore. Now that we were off the air, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm like a real big fan. And like, I ended up being that goofball. He was like, oh, thank you. And like, at that point, it was like he was talking to a little kid. He was like, thank you so much. And I'm like, big old idiot. And he was like, you know what? Since you like my stuff so much, like, I'll send it to you. And I was like, like, I lost it. I lost my shit completely.
Well, I mean, that's the cool thing about
there it is.
There we go. That's the cool thing about all of this. I mean, I had similar experiences at Heroes Con doing the filming of the Issues With episodes, and there were a couple of guys on who I had invited to do it that I was like, okay, this will be a good person. Yannick Paquette, the Canadian artist, I didn't know him from anything.
Yeah,
and he was so much fun to chat with. And really so willing to kind of, kibitz back and forth comedically and just to take weird tangents, and completely relaxed and you're sort of in his element. And it turned out to be one of the most fun interviews that we did.
Yeah. That was a really fun one, actually. That was one of the interviews that stuck out in my mind when it happened. But then when we were going through post and we were actually watching that interview, I was like, that's right. I remember, because I was like hiding in the corner trying not to laugh. Like, it was so funny. I'm like,
he was just, he dialed it up immediately. Like, he was ready to go. And we had such a blast with him. And now I'm a huge fan of his. Like, I saw him again at Dragon Con 2 months later, and we picked up the conversation like we had just left it off at Heroes Con. He was instantly back into it. And, and I feel bad for him, because when I went to get him for the interview, I'm at his table, and this dude in a classic Battlestar Galactica Cylon Centurion armor with the red light going back and forth and the sound effects walked by his table, and both of us kind of did a double take. And I was like, I got to get a picture with him. And Yannick and I chased this dude down to get selfies with him in his Cylon outfit.
That's
and so
awesome.
right off the bat, we were just like, okay, this is a caper. This is not really serious. But that's, each, and in Kat, you've been doing these interviews with folks too. It's like each and every one, you sort of have to wait for the first couple of questions before you're like, okay, now I get who this person is and what the tone of the conversation is going to be like.
Oh, 100%. So I was looking at that playback of the video, and I'm a talker with my hands, like I am always going. And when I'm like 100%. And when here's a little behind the scenes that people don't know. When he's talking, my hands go down, and like you can see my hands pressed. I was taking the sweat off my hands on my legs. That's what I was doing. So like on my pants, like, so every time he would answer, like my hands were like this because I was trying not to move, because if I really do it, you can see me like moving, but I'm like this because I'm like, okay, gotta get the sweat off, can't see my hands glistening on screen, because like I'm a fan, especially with things that I don't know how to do. So artists, singers, better writers than I am. Like I get super cheesy. And as you saw from the little clip, my face was like, I'm still cheesing every time I talk about it. I'm like super cheesy. But yeah, you kind of worry. Well, I don't know about you, Jeff, but I always worry because it's like, oh my God, this writing is good. The art is good. Is he a jerk? Is she a jerk? Like, are they super down to earth? And I'm like, okay, what am I walking into? Am I grabbing my bottle of water, or am I asking my husband to pass me a vodka shot? Like, so it does take a little bit. And I'm always like, Jack will tell you, I'm always like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm in for.
I will say, so what's interesting is, okay. You two have are good examples of polar opposites for doing work on camera, whereas Jeff tends to be very like, all right, I'm gonna do this, I'm ready when you are, and it starts and he does his thing and it's over and he's like, that was great, and like it's an execution, where Kat does the like it starts and she's like, on point, I'm doing my thing, here we go, and it ends and she's like,
well, see though,
because I'm wound up, and then the countdown happens, and then I'm like, all right, game face, and I'm like, let's go, and we're gonna have fun. And once it's over, I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, I do so much better in the film setting where I can't see the monitor. Like, I'm always distracted by where do I look on, and I see myself, and I'm like, okay, whatever. But to me, what really helped me was that I worked in radio for 5 years. Where they hit a button and I was live for 3 hours straight, and you just you have to get into that pocket, I just gotta vibe with this, and the worst thing in the world, and this has happened to me, is if the person that you're talking to on the phone or you're interviewing in person, your mind wanders because you're like, they're such an ungodly bore, and your mind wanders, and then you're like, Did they just ask me a question that I now need to supply an answer for, and I have no idea the last two sentences this person just said? And then you just make your way through it, and trust me, you do that once or twice, and you become a pro.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of feel like the parent in the room that's hearing about something you did that I didn't know about, that I don't want to know about. Like as the producer, I'm like, I don't want to hear that you drifted off and you don't remember.
No, that's only happened in radio. That never happened.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding.
I was getting ready to say Jeff and I on that level are totally the same, because it's like, your mind kind of goes like, oh, what's for dinner, man? What am I doing after this? And then you're like, oh shit, what did you say? What?
Well, the worst thing too is that if you go, oh God, I just thought of a great question to ask, when I find the right spot to insert it, and then you start working on that question in your head, and you're like, oh shit, I'm not listening to them anymore.
Yeah.
And now you've lost where you were in the conversation. So
for me, and here's where Jack always messes with me, is I have my pen and paper, because if they say something cool, like I want to write it down, or if I think of something, like I want to write it down, because my memory's shit anyway. And I'm doing this as the person is full screen, and then Jack will cut to me, and I'm like, dang it. Like, I'm trying to write here. I'm trying to work. And he always does. So you'll catch me doing this. And I'm like,
It happens to TV reporters all the time where they're like, that's on the other person and it cuts back to them and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm still here. That's right. Okay.
Zach is famous for that. Or when I'm drinking my water.
And entertaining to mess with you at my discretion.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean.
100%. But like, so for me, my biggest thing is, so I've been doing interviewing for 7 years, shockingly. But the anxiety never goes away because I always, unfortunately, go back to the terrible interviews or the people who end up being like jerks. Because I'll never forget, I guess I have kind of forgotten because he was a jerk, but there was an artist at one of the conventions and he had finally written a book, and I was like, I showed him my press pass. I told him what company I was working for. And I was like, do you mind if I interview you? And he legit said, and I quote, are you going to be like a bitch and ask me like regular, ordinary questions? Like, why did I get started in being an artist? Or are you going to be like a real interviewer and ask me in-depth questions? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually leave and take my anxiety pill and never talk to you again. And I walked away. And like the following year, I saw him at a booth and I walked by and he stopped me and he was like, I remember you. And I was like, I remember you too. And he was like, I just want to apologize because I was like super hungry and nobody was getting me food and I shouldn't have taken it out on you. And I was like, I kind of understand, but you have a good con.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, everybody, it's really tough to be on, all the time. And when you're in the con situation, you got to be on the whole time. And I've talked to people about that who, they have to sort of steel themselves. Like, I have to be nice.
Yeah.
No matter what I'm feeling. And, the people who are starting out, they don't necessarily do that. Yeah. Of course, there's that window of, I have to be nice to everyone until I'm this famous. Then I can be a dick to half the people.
Yeah.
And it's not going to affect my bottom line. And that here's the thing too with HeroesCon. We interviewed several guests who are known to be a little bit acerbic, a little bit grouchy, a little bit difficult to do. Yeah. And Neil Adams is one of those people. He is a mega talent. And to interview him, you have to indulge that a little bit. And there's no question that he's not been asked,
I would say that we were told straight up that they were like there was kind of like, all right, if you want to go for a ride. But there was also like, it's like you were saying, you have to be on all the time. Yeah. I think what you're dealing with a lot of times when people are like, dude, they're going to take you for a ride. It's because there's like, how many interviews have they done?
Yeah.
And they're trying to entertain themselves. Like, that's one of the reasons why I don't think I could survive if I had to do, like, the reason I don't put myself on screen on the show is I would prefer not to be seen. I'm not really, I can only interact with so many people before I just hit everybody. Like, yeah. So I kind of understand that. Like, I would start saying some weird crap too, probably during interviews, purely out of a, like, just trying to make someone different, which is one of the things that with issues with, I think, we nailed. You talked about earlier how some people would bring up something more in depth or a little deeper. Right. And one of the things that we got that was sort of unexpected. I was not familiar with this situation, but in this particular episode, we got a chance to meet Patrick Dean, right?
Yeah. Patrick Dean, who lives in kind of, I think, around the Atlanta area in Georgia. He's not far from here. So great guy. And let me just go ahead and tell people, if you want to go check out what Patrick Dean has been doing in the past year, his work has gotten so much, I don't want to say better, but it's like there's a quality in his work now that is really off the charts inspiring. And of course, he's dealing with a debilitative disease that is ultimately going to end his life, but he is continuing to draw, and he is drawing his own sort of biography and commentary throughout the end days of his life. You know, he's still hanging in there, and he's doing some of his best work. He did a piece that's on his Facebook page. If you go find Patrick Dean, you're going to be rewarded when you see his work. He did a piece of people wearing masks, marching, carrying torches, and the title of it was "We Will Not Die for the Tao."
Wow.
Talking about people who were not going to go back to work during the coronavirus for whatever, to die in order to make profits for other people. And that image has been turned into T-shirts now. That image has gotten pretty wide exposure. And when we met him a year ago, he was in pretty rough health. He was on a breathing apparatus. In the time since then, he's had to tape the pencil to his hand to draw, to be able to hold it. And for whatever reason, he's doing, I think, the best work of his that I've ever seen in the past 6 months. It really is amazing to see. The spirit of this guy as an artist is just phenomenal.
Well, and a moment ago on the screen down there, we had that's the actual comic, this one.
Yes.
I've been given, what is it called? I keep missing it.
ALS, yeah.
I've been giving an ALS diagnosis.
Yep.
And so he's been drawing this comic about his experience while he's literally living it. And that blew my mind. That was one of those things that I was like, whoa, okay. So we're really quickly, the sort of the thing that always came through for me when we talked about the original concept behind Issues With was that we were pulling away this shroud of where artists and creators from comic books aren't people. They're a signature. They're a name on the book at best. But you go and you get your autograph and you're just like, wow, they made this. And you're just so amazed that they made this thing that you love so much that you lose track of that they have their own problems, that they have real lives, that what happens is, as a result, people take for granted that they're at cons, that they're doing this. They're there to see their fans. I mean, you don't see every film actor, A-list film actors don't go around the country appearing at events and signing stuff, sometimes for free. And sometimes what they're charging is nothing. If you wanted, Nicole Kidman to sign something or whoever, it would be ridiculous, right? But here are these guys they're A-list. These are A-list artists, they're at these cons. And I think that gets lost. And we're sort of pulling that away and saying hey, they're real people, man. They don't have to, a lot of them, they don't have to live this way, showing up at cons. And I say it that way because to me, cons would be exhausting. I don't mean to make it sound like cons are the worst thing ever, but to me, it'd be exhausting when they hit 12 of these in a year, or they hit 20 of these or whatever.
Right. Some people go out every weekend to a different con, and we have to, of course, point out that there are no conventions happening now in the age of coronavirus, and a lot of these guys who make their living not by doing pages in comics, but by going to cons and doing sketches for fans. And doing autograph signings and selling T-shirts and what have you. This is the way they make a living, and that has been removed. That has been currently removed for them for at least the rest of 2020 and possibly well into 2021 at this point.
Right.
So these artists need certainly support now more than ever, I think. So if you're a fan of particular artists, or you stumble across them, I think about people who go to cons and they $2,000 on a weekend at a con is nothing. They're like, I've saved up $2,000. I'm going to go to a con. I'm going to get my Neil Adams sketch. I'm going to get signed and slabbed copies of these books, or whatever it is. Those people still want to spend that kind of money. So I encourage people to go to the websites, Facebook pages of your favorite artists, and just hit them up. There are a lot of dudes out there. A lot of, and I say dudes, it's like guys, gals in the comic industry who are still doing commissions, are still doing commissions right now. Yeah, and so you can commission a piece right now. They're all at home, they're all able to work and ready to work. And so, and I know a number of artists who, they're limping along by doing 20 commissions a week.
Right.
Just to keep going. Whereas if they were at a con, they would have done 50 in a weekend.
Mm-hmm. I was really tempted to air a specific episode of the Breakdown where somebody had a couple drinks beforehand.
Somebody on the show?
And I'm not going to say who she is.
You know, that was before the coronavirus, and Kat didn't know what day of the week it was, right?
100% thought it was Tuesday. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a drink or 3 or 5 or 10 at that point. And
then you were like, oh, crap.
Jack texted me, I think, 30 minutes before the show started. And I was like...
I think I sent you the link for the day, which is usually about 30 minutes before. And I remember your response. You tried to play it off. I remember you giving me this like, yeah, okay, I will be there. And it was just the way you texted. It was like you literally texted like, I will be there. And I was like...
Which is never what I text. It's always like an emoji or...
Usually it's K. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And then like I turned to my husband and I was like, shit. And he was like, what? I was like, today's flipping Wednesday. And he was like, oh, I thought you knew. I was like, how did you let me drink this much? And then of course the internet was shit. And the rest is
I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother playing it because
thank you. They can find
I think
it.
We can all, yes, like it encourages you to go watch our past episodes.
Yeah. It's I believe it's somewhere maybe in the 20s or 30s numerically, somewhere there. Lower?
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
It was in the teens. Okay.
Wait, when I started lower, like
maybe,
it's like
in the teens.
In the teens. Okay, so those were the early days.
It was. I've learned my lesson.
But some of my favorite episodes have been your friend Kevin joined us one day, Kat, and we watched like trailers and responded to them. And it's like we've had just interviews with the episodes with the 3 of us, where something came up and we just like we end up on a roll. We've had some great guests, but we've also just had some funny experiences. Yeah. And I'm interested to see what happens for the next 50. We do have a short clip that we are going to play it's a deleted scene. Kat, you like your exclusives, right?
Ooh, exclusive on the breakdown is my favorite thing.
This is like a super raw exclusive too. This is from the vault, where it hasn't been properly color corrected. It's not cut like together for a showing. It was removed.
So this is from the show. This is from the Issues with show.
Yes.
So, yeah.
This is a snippet of the stuff you guys haven't gotten to see yet.
I'm excited.
Don't be. It's going to be the worst clip possible. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Jeff is in it. It's awesome.
I don't know. It looks, where he's got it paused, it looks like I'm doing a highly inappropriate, Stevie Wonder impersonation or something.
I can try to change the pause face, but it's not.
It's just wrong in this day and age. Yeah. I was so high.
You look like you're just like, yeah, man.
Hey, cool. It's like, you like the Grateful Dead? Yeah.
So enjoy this, but we chose this one because I know overall it's one of my favorite interviews. And Jeff, you obviously have a personal connection to this artwork. I think you grew up with Trekker, right?
Trekker was you're talking about Ron Randall and his book Trekker. That was in kind of the late 80s, the early 90s. I was on board in the early days of it as an independent comic. And, it was really cool because it was ahead of its time. A female lead in a science fiction action driven series, written by a middle-aged white dude was kind of like, well, gosh, why? It's like clearly he's not, as most artists and writers get accused, it's not their own self fantasy fulfillment that they're drawing on the page, right. But that he was trying to make a deeper impact and a deeper point. And later the character comes out as being gay, and now just lots of things that he's been able to evolve over the years, and it's creator owned, so he continues to thrive with this, and just funded a couple of major Kickstarters in the past year.
Very successful Kickstarters on that ad.
Yeah.
But here's a clip for you guys.
Yay!
So you take on other work.
And I will try to crank it up for you as best I can.
If we got out of here without me bringing up one particular thing that I discovered in your resume, you did a little work for The Man a few years ago.
Oh, what?
It's being glitchy.
Material with Batman and Spider-Man.
Oh.
With was it H&R Block or?
I think it was.
We've broken the internet.
Frankly,
You've tried to wipe it out of your mind.
Yeah. No,
we should have a sofa. If you need to lie down and have some therapy, we can do that.
Maybe a stiff drink. No,
Bartender?
that was. I don't even remember the specifics. It was through some ad agency, and that was a case of that falls under the category of a commercial job you take on. I did some illustrations. They were doing an article about just an informative article about some basic principles of taxes and accounting and budgeting, and they use as examples, multimillionaire Bruce Wayne and what his sort of budget looks like, and then Peter Parker, struggling photojournalist, and what his
because they're definitely in the I don't know. I was going to say in the Donald Trump versus Donald Trump voters tax brackets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just dated this interview
That's
forever and all time, hopefully.
I'm getting a wicked.
So I was like, Batman and Spider-Man.
Yeah. All right.
Why would they pick those
Well,
two?
maybe you just have to throw that up on the issues with Facebook page after the show.
Yeah.
I'm curious now too. I remember bits and pieces of every interview that we did, but I don't particularly remember that part. What little I heard of it, but yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
It's interesting because I checked over on our Facebook and it was basically streaming fine on the Facebook, but on our end it looked like nonsense. So instead of giving you guys a bunch of nonsense, I will post it to our YouTube. I'll do it right now.
There you go.
Boom, boom, boom. Go over to the YouTube and hit that like and follow and subscribe button.
There you go.
Kat has that reversed.
She's a pusher. She's a pusher.
I am.
The first one's free.
But then, talking about that being a deleted scene, we filmed more than we needed with everybody that we talked with. We had them in the room with us for about an hour, so probably 45 to 50 minutes worth of chat with each of them. So there are things from every interview that's going to end up on the cutting room floor, as they say. So there's a lot of bonus content out there. There's some crazy, and it just depends on how Jack puts it together at the end. There's some crazy deleted Neil Adams stories that people are going to go completely nuts for.
Oh yeah, we have some legitimate exclusive, like never discussed before.
Yep.
They literally they would tell a story and it would end and they would go cut and they go, I've never told anybody that.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, Greg LaRocque, who we interviewed, he had one of those in the middle of the interview where he's like, should I tell? I've never really told anybody this story before. Okay, I'll tell you. And we're like, oh, what? Of course you're going to tell us. And he told us a great story that was, filled with all kinds of awkward situations that really brought a whole new light to a fairly iconic comic book that most fans of Marvel in the 80s have in their collection somewhere. You'll never look at it the same way again after you hear this story.
Yeah. And all of them. I mean, everybody had something. There was stuff that they would sit down to talk about that was their sort of most infamous, or the thing they're most recognized for. And it would be the thing that they're like, yeah, I didn't put any thought into that. That was in a drawer. That I'd drawn that for something else. And you're like, what? So those are a lot of the fun things too. I mean, not just the deep opening up, but just the total nerd. What did you call it at the start of the show, Kat? Cool nerd moments where we find out things that were like, like Charles Vess, for instance. He's somebody who I loved his work he's, for those of you who don't know, he did, you can't see it, I don't know why I'm looking, but Web of Spider-Man #1, which I have a copy of on my wall.
Oh, it's right there for me too.
It's right there for Kat. But just always loved that comic cover, and until
it's totally out of his realm of normal stuff to do that type of superhero character. And
now I love his work. I love finding all the other things that he's done.
Well, I dug out he did the artwork for Neil Gaiman's Stardust miniseries back in the day. So he's worked with Neil Gaiman a ton. Like Neil Gaiman loves working with Charles Vess because he has this great sort of painted artist look to his stuff. It's, we learned a lot about a lot of people. We learned that Keith Giffen, pissed off Mel Gibson in a conference call about a potential movie rights scenario because he didn't know who he was.
He was he called him a jerk or something, right?
Oh, it was worse than that. Oh, it was worse than that. that one gets the TV MA rating for sure. But we invited people like that who Keith Giffen is known for being a bit of a lunatic anyway. He's a candidate for electroshock therapy if there ever was one. But I kind of preface it by saying, talk about anything you want to talk about, unfiltered. Right. He's like, you don't want me to be unfiltered. I'm like, no, I do.
Yeah.
In fact, he told me as we were walking back to his table after it was over, I said, we'll share with you whenever this is ready to go. Are you on social media at all? And he goes, I have an agreement with DC Comics that I will stay off of social media so they won't fire me.
Awesome.
And so that's him. That's this guy. And he's like, I don't do it because I'll get fired. He knows. He's like, I know. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, Kat, I said at the start of the show, I was kind of putting you on the spot for putting you on the spot later.
Yeah.
Now I'm putting you on the spot.
So I have decided not to say who the person is, but I have decided to give the list of things he's been in.
Okay. Clues.
Clues. All right, Jeff, we're gonna pretend we don't know who it is, and we're gonna make bad guesses. All right, go.
So he's been the 50th episode guest, has been in the TV series Daredevil.
Martha Stewart. Oh, okay. Keep going.
Jessica Jones.
Betty White.
No. Closer, you're getting closer.
Okay.
The
Rosario
Punisher.
Dawson. Yeah.
The Punisher. He's also done guest appearances on the TV show Blacklist, Law and Order SVU, and he's worked on Broadway.
Cadaver number 4.
That's a lot of IMDb homework for anybody who wants to figure it out.
Yep.
For sure.
Who on these shows have been on all these shows?
And I promise none of my guesses were helpful.
No, don't listen to Jack at all.
Speaking of TV appearances, my friend and local to me actress Kay Galvin, who's a sweet little British, Mrs. Doubtfire grandmotherly type, she has made her debut on the DC Universe Stargirl show.
Oh yay!
And she's great. She is great as the villain's grandmother.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you're watching on the CW or on the DC Universe app, I think Stargirl's up to episode 4 now, and Kay Galvin, who was on the show a few weeks back, is in 4 of the 13 season 1 episodes.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah. So see,
episode 46.
Get all kinds of people. There she is. There's Kay. Doesn't she just look like the nicest person?
She does actually. She looks like she could make a really good chicken noodle soup.
Okay.
She also revealed that her character may not be that nice. So it's worth watching. That's episode 46. If you're following Stargirl, it's interesting to see her take on it. And then now that it's out.
Now that you can compare, because I feel like she was willing to talk more than she probably thought she should have. Like she's like, I don't know if I should have said that. But it's all good.
There were a couple maybe spoiler moments where she was like, "Ooh, oh," and it was awesome. I mean, that's what we live for. But if we find out she got in trouble, sorry, sorry, guys.
How could she ever be in trouble? Everybody's like, "Oh, she's so nice."
She looks wonderful, like a beautiful human being.
So so next week we have another superhero TV show actor who's appearing on the 50th episode. I do know. It's like we can pretend we don't, but I know who it is. And Jack and I have talked, and this is somebody that Jack has talked about wanting to get for a long time. So it's great.
And it's bounced back and forth between us too. I think it even admitted during the interview, like we've talked about this 100 times that we never could line something up, but we're going to be able to line it up this time because you'll hear about it, I'm sure.
Great is it?
Fantastic. And there is some weird rumor mill stuff going on about Daredevil, one of the shows in question that this person has performed on.
I'm all about it.
And I was just listening to a Kevin Smith podcast from like 6 weeks ago because my podcast listening has really taken a hit.
Yeah, me too.
In coronavirus. But there was a rumor out there that Daredevil will be in the next Spider-Man movie, and that it could be Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil in the TV show. I think that's the perfect pick.
It would.
And, then,
100%.
And the rights for Daredevil return to Disney in like 6 months. It's like soon.
Yeah. Long before they'll be in production. So.
Right.
I hope so. I think that would be the smart play. Recasting seems like it's more problematic than it should be. And here's a connection.
And it's a good portrayal.
To Charles Vess. Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil, was in the movie adaptation of Stardust that Charles Vess drew based on a Neil Gaiman story.
Oh, look at that!
He has done movies with
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon.
You guys are already linked because I've got 1 degree from Kevin Bacon. Yep. Back in college, I was one of 3 people that went to a doubles casting call for stand-in for a movie that never got released anywhere, starring Kevin Bacon. And it was directed by Timothy Hutton. So I met Kevin Bacon and Timothy Hutton on the same afternoon.
Oh, weird. So they made it and it never got seen? Or
it showed up like on Showtime or one of those cable networks.
Oh, man.
It's a movie called Digging to China, starring Kevin Bacon, directed by Timothy Hutton.
Are you in it? And is it of your booty? Like, is that the double that you went and did? The booty shot? Inquiring minds want it.
They had narrowed it down to 3 people because they were looking for the same height and weight as Kevin Bacon.
Butt.
And
what was I say? Is it because you got a nice little booty on you?
I was exactly in the middle. This is like in 1998. I was exactly in the middle. There was one guy that was clearly not even in the running, and another guy that if you were approaching them from behind looked exactly like Kevin Bacon. So maybe I don't.
What's the booty shot?
No. Yeah.
I saw her face. It was like,
I threw that in. No, but yeah. So and apparently it was a really low budget, not a great shooting experience because of course they were looking for camera doubles for all the setups.
Right.
For the leads, and I knew the girl that was the double for, I think it was Mary Stuart Masterson was the female lead, so she was the double for her, and she was just like, it sucked because it was summertime and you're standing out in the middle of the field with mosquitoes while they're lining up the cameras and the lights and everything, and then you're bringing the actor to the set, now you go away.
Now we're bringing the person who really does the job in.
You just stand there so we can line everything up. So
I would personally, if I were you, I would just tell people that I was the body double for Kevin Bacon.
That's true. That's true. I'm
adding it to your Wikipedia tonight.
Dude.
There you go.
Oh, can we add the phrase juicy booty? Nice juicy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? I don't care. There's a certain point when it doesn't matter anymore. I tell people all the time. I was Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 2006. And they give me a funny look, but I'm telling you, so were you guys, because that was the year they put a foil mirror cover on it and said, you are the Time of the Year person. So I tell people all the time, if you're putting out your resume.
Wait, is that what Trump's been talking about this whole time when he claims he's Person of the Year all the time?
He was Person of the Year in 2006 with the rest of us. But I always tell people, say you should put that on your resume. That way you'll get a call back. Because if they look at it and go, you were Time Magazine Person of the Year, and you're like, yeah, but let me tell you why. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do stuff like that, Jack, because I just lost it. I
So he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I think I'm onto something actually, where something that has made no sense is starting to make sense.
Hey, it's so funny because speaking of movies that I was in, I was in the movie My Fellow American. No, hang on. This
I just like the Cat Night the same. We're like, what?
Yeah. This all ties together. I was in My Fellow Americans with Jack Lemmon and Dan Aykroyd and James Garner back in 1996, and it's about two ex-presidents, basically. And Jack Lemmon is the Republican and James Garner is the Democrat. And they go to Jack Lemmon's character's presidential library, and he's got a framed copy of Time magazine where he's the person of the year. And James Garner makes some joke about it, and he goes, at least I was on Time magazine's person of the year. And James Garner's like, yeah, but so was Hitler. And Jack Lemmon's response is, not twice. And that's in that movie. And so it made me think of Trump in that moment.
So the real question is, no, but I have the real question. In the movie My Fellow American, whose butt do you play?
I don't. But I am in the Rose Garden speech that Dan Aykroyd's giving near the end of the movie. And interestingly enough, and here's some trivia: Paul Feig, the guy who's now a big comedy director, was a minor actor in that movie, as well as another movie that was filmed in Asheville a few years before that by Disney called Heavyweights.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, which I did a couple of days on that too. But yeah, they built a fake rose garden on the Biltmore Estates property. And shot this whole sequence there. And so I got to work. I was like right next to Dan Aykroyd while he's up there delivering a speech as the president. And John Hurd plays the vice president, who's kind of, if you watch it now, it's weird because John Hurd is like the fulfillment of Dan Quayle, Sarah Palin, and Donald Trump all rolled into one. Because there's a line where they're like sending him. It's like, we're meeting with the delegation from the Netherlands. Will you please tell the vice president it's not the nether regions? Like he's that kind of, It's one of those movies. It's one of those.
I love, as terrible as politics are, I love how it messes with you. Go back and watch something with anything political in it, and you're just like, whoa! Like sometimes they just nailed something on the head. You're like, that was funny then. It's not funny now. It's actually happening. It's not funny
at all. Hey, here's one for you. The last one I'll give you is if you like a political movie that's still relevant, Eddie Murphy, 1991, The Distinguished Gentleman. Go check it out. Still plays, still works as well as it did back then. Yeah.
The dog is freaking out.
Oh no.
The 2-year-old is crying.
Because you brought up Trump. It's your own fault.
Agreed.
I am needed elsewhere.
Well, then let's wrap this puppy up with a nice little bow.
All right. Happy 49.
Happy 49. Thank you for 49 episodes and 51 more.
Let's keep rolling.
Let's do it.
We finally got it right, so we might as well keep going.
I know, right? Let's keep it going.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for joining me today. Thank you, Jack, for gracing us with your weird presence, as it's such a rare opportunity. But I really had a lot of fun going down memory lane and getting some behind the scenes info. It was definitely great. As always, you know what to do, people. Come on. This is 49 episodes in. Like, share, subscribe, follow, tell everyone. Go to issueswithshow.com. Look at me getting it together on the 49th episode. There's a newsletter. There's things coming up that's really exciting. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Don't at me at Twitter because I got banned from Twitter, actually. So.
Oh, how did you do it? Because somebody that should be banned certainly doesn't seem to ever get his.
I yelled at the NFL, and I tagged the NFL, and I yelled at them, and then Twitter said I can't do that, so they banned me for a while, and then I appealed it because I was like, they deserve it. So
all you got to do is get elected president. They'll let you do anything.
I know. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But as always, thank you for tuning in, everyone, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.